And Daniel, please.
Okay, so you all can see the slide, and only the slide, right?
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay, good. I've never given a Zoom presentation before, so okay, so good morning. Some of you know me as the guy who spent just $8 on food for the entire year, and that was back in 2017. So with food prices increasing these days, I think I now have to spend maybe $9 on food for the whole year. So the truth is, I rarely buy food because I live almost completely on rescued food. And you might be wondering, what is rescued food? So rescued food is basically unsold food from businesses that normally just gets thrown away. And what food rescuers like myself do is that we go to these businesses and we ask them, please don't throw away the food. Please give us the food because we can give it to people who want to use it. So I belong to a food sharing community that's called Kampong Bishan. We receive this rescue food and we give it away to our members and to members of the public. What you see on the slide is a sharing shelf that we have at a void deck in Bishan. Anybody who passes by the shelf can just take whatever they want. Last year, we leased the van to a specific white NB200 Nissan van to rescue even more food and feed the community. And in the past 10 months, we have transported enough food to make 35,000 meals. And if an average meal today costs about $4, that equates to $140,000 savings on food for our community. And that's how I spend next to nothing on food. And as a result, food inflation does not worry me or our community members a single bit. And that brings me to my second point. Having had our own lives transformed by rescued food, our community wanted to do more for the people in Singapore. So we wanted to share with others this alternative way of getting food instead of having to buy it. We recognize that there may not be enough money in existence to meet everybody's needs, but we also recognize that there's more than enough food for everyone to have a share of it. We know this because as a nation, we are throwing away 30% of the food that we import and produce in Singapore. Basically, we got too much food. We're just not distributing it properly and efficiently enough. So the reason why some people in Singapore, although Singapore is like one of the top most food secure nations in the world, but yet in Singapore, we still have, pre-COVID, we still have 1 in 10 people who suffer from food insecurity. I don't know after COVID what's the number, but basically we have people in Singapore who don't have enough food to eat. And the reason why that is because most of the time we require people to use money to buy food. So it's not that there isn't enough food to go around, it's that there isn't enough money to go around. So when we want to help people, normally we think about how can we get them to, how we can get more money, so how can we upskill them, how can we give them better jobs, how can we give them better education, how we can increase their salaries, also that they can earn more money to buy more food for themselves. But all this seems needlessly inefficient. Since there's so much food to go around, right, that we have to throw it away, then if people need more food, then how about we just make food more easily accessible to them? Let's do away with the need to use money to buy food and just ask them to come forward, take whatever food they need for themselves and their families. So it is our hope that out of these people who come forward and eat rescued food, some of them will become food rescuers themselves. And they will start to collect the food regularly, share it with others around them who need the food. And we already see this happening in our community. We want to make it more known to others who don't know about it yet. One example was there's this lady in our community who stays in a rental flat, and when she got to know about food rescue, she started to become a food rescuer, collect food from restaurants, from businesses, and then she brings back, every time she goes out, she brings back enough food to feed like 20 families. So she takes what she needs for herself, and the rest she shares around with her neighbors in her rental block. So, okay, so that brings me to my third point. We have spent the past year working on this project called Mobile Kaybie. And in the slide, you see that's Kaybie, that's our White NV200. So once a week, every Tuesday evening, we fill this community van with rescued vegetables and fruits, breads, and cakes. And we drive around to different places in Singapore to give it away to anybody who wants it. So when people come forward to collect the rescue food, we get them to do three things. One is to like our Facebook page. Two is to join our Facebook group called We Love Rescue Food, where they can share and learn from others in the group how to use the rescue food that they collect. And the third thing is, and besides sharing the food, they also learn where else they can collect rescue food besides from Kampong Bishan. And the third thing is we get them to share a Facebook post. Since we started this group 6 months ago, we now have 2,500 members in it. To do this project, we leased a van for a year. You can see the van in the background. So we're coming to the end of our lease, but before we return the van, we want to do a big event that we call Mega Mobile Kaybie. This event will be held at Bishan Community Center on Wednesday, 31st August, from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. We are targeting to have at least 500 people to attend this event, and we'll be using a queue number system so that participants, after they collect the queue number, they will need to wait around for their turn. And while they're waiting for their turn, they can go and visit the various booths that will be present at the event. So what I'm asking for today is that if you represent a group or organization that you would like to make yourselves more well-known to the public to the tune of about 500 people, I invite you to work with us on this Mega Mobile Kaybie event. We have a requirement that groups that work with us, you need to commit to bringing at least 40 people from your own network to come to the event. And this means that these people who come, they will be able to collect rescued food from our van and therefore be introduced to rescued food as an alternative way of getting food for themselves. And these people can be from any walk of life, any background, any employment status, any income level. We only need them to like our Facebook page, join our Facebook group, and share a Facebook post. So they need to have a mobile phone and we need to have a Facebook account. If they don't have a Facebook account, we will help them to create it. If they don't have data on a mobile phone, we will share our hotspot with them. But if they don't have a mobile phone, then that's a problem. They can bring somebody else who has a mobile phone and allow them to use it. If you work with us, then as a participating group, your return on investment will be 10 times or higher what you contribute. So how this works is that if we have 10 groups working together, we can bring 10 times 40, that's about 400 people to the event, with the rest being made up of residents, passers-by, walk-ins. We are very confident of bringing at least 100 people there in 6 hours because just this week alone, we had a smaller scale event at the same place and that already brought 80 people there in just 2 hours. So each of these persons, and including yourself and your volunteers as well, will be able to collect one basket full of rescue food from our vans. Oops, sorry. Yeah, so we have not yet started to reach out to other groups to invite them to join this because I wanted to give this a good space community first dibs. I would like to make this offer to members of AGS as well as our visitors present today to work with me and have a booth for the event. I hope to have at least half of our booths filled with AGS members' initiatives. And if you'd like to come aboard, please text me on WhatsApp at 9119-7155. My number is on the slide. Tell me your name, tell me the name of the initiative or group that you would like to set up a booth for, and then we can work things out from there. If you don't want to join as a representative group, you don't want to have a booth, but you want to participate in this event, you want to help out this event, you can also fill up the volunteer form that's on the slide. And that's all from me. I'm happy to take any questions if you have.
Thank you, Daniel, and such a well-told story and your flow. And we're very happy that we got that on video so that we can use that to share as well. So now we have some time for questions. Doug, I see you unmuted yourself. Would you like to go to the first one?
Oh, you're very observant. Yeah, Daniel, it's amazing how you just keep building and building the movement, the community. It's awesome. So impressed. I have a kind of a question about the food, like it figures like the two biggest producers of food that could go to waste would be obviously supermarkets and I guess restaurants. Can you share with us a little bit about how the supermarket seems a little bit easier to see how that might work? Restaurants, or is it mostly supermarkets? Or how does that break down?
Well, we don't actually know the figures of how they break down because supermarkets especially are very reluctant to share how much food they waste.
Really? Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Because if customers know how much food they waste, they'll be like they will lose customers basically. So they are very reluctant to share. But that said, a lot of the biggest chain in Singapore, they do donate their unsold food to certain charities, and we do sometimes get it lah. A lot of the time, supermarkets, if they have local distributors, they also return certain products to the distributors, to the suppliers, to the importers, and put the waste on their accounts rather than supermarkets. So for restaurants itself, there is a food rescue group called D2L, and they do go around to various restaurants and cafes to collect unsold food on a daily basis. So that's an amazing initiative there. It's also a great place to go and get cook food if you want. So for example, there's one location they collect from is from a hotel. So they pack the food into bentos, and then when you go and collect, you can get like 15, 20 bentos a day or sometimes more. And you have to figure out what to do with it. Another big source of food waste in Singapore would be your wholesalers, your importers of food, as well as your food manufacturers. These are the sources of food that get discarded that you don't see because it's higher up the food supply chain.
Right.
Yeah. And generally, from my experience, the higher up the food supply chain a player is, the more food waste that's generated, simply because they have a higher volume of food transacted. Hope that answers the question.
That's very much so and very enlightening. Thanks, Daniel.
Thanks, Da. Would someone else have a question for Daniel?
Daniel, just wondering, like, is there like a 10-year vision or like a long-term angle of what you envision it to like? If there is, but what does it look like?
That's a very hard question to answer because 5 years ago, food rescue didn't exist in Singapore. It's like creating a whole new industry or a whole new field. But that said, it's not a 10-year or 15-year vision, but the end goal of it is to turn food waste in Singapore to be completely zero. And that's actually doable simply because all food is organic. So all food can either be used to feed humans, or used to feed animals, or used to feed the soil. So no food actually needs to go into our bins or to go into our incinerators. All food can be reused or repurposed or recycled. So that would be the end goal.
Yeah. Okay, so food for human, animals, or plants.
In that order, correct. You have food waste. You have food waste. You channel it first to humans. So those who can eat it first. If food is not edible by humans, they can still be edible by animals. And if food cannot be edible at all, it can be put back into the soil and be turned into compost, for example, for the soil.
Thanks for that, Zero Daniel. I see Zhonghan has also shared a link in the chat about the food recovery hierarchy. Thank you for that, Zhonghan. Maybe one more question before we go on to the next segment. Would anyone like to ask one more question?
Can I be the same guy with a different question? So, what are some of the like the governmental organizations? Are you working with some of them? Like, is there a collaboration, and how are they supporting you?
Generally, we don't openly work with the government organizations. But as and when we need help, we do. We don't really approach them. They're more like they approach us and say, "How can we help?" So right now, the in thing in this year, for example, would be the various community centers, the various RCs are getting involved. We will see a few MPs also getting involved in because they're starting to recognize that rescue food can feed people, and this year has been a period of very high inflation, high food prices for their residents. People are suffering, so they realize that hey, they can work with food rescue groups to channel this food to their residents, and in so doing, this really benefits residents. And it's non-partisan. You have MPs from different political parties getting on board and doing this, and so it's really heartwarming to see this taking place. You see it mostly in the Bedok area, the Hougang area, the Yishun area, the Bishan area. So there's a strong food rescue and distribution movement taking place with the community centers and the RCs there. There's also this thing called the community fridge, where currently we've got 18 community fridges in Singapore. Community fridges are basically public fridges placed at the void decks of low-income neighborhoods. So at this fridge, anybody can go there and take whatever they want, and anybody can go there and put whatever food that they have extra of. So you have people, you have besides food rescuers, you have people from vegetable wholesalers, or even from the wet market, they have unsold food. They will just bring it to the fridge. They put there. You have people from farms, even they produce too much food, they cannot finish selling it off. They will also bring it to the community fridges to just give it away to anybody who wants it. So that definitely has government support, because to put a fridge, you need town council permission and all that stuff, and they help to pay for the electricity and everything. So that really helps. On a bigger scale, MSF has a coordination group with various food charities and food rescue organizations that help to make sure that food that's given to different parties is not being duplicated. Because sometimes if you have two parties giving food to the same community, and the community can only eat so much food, whatever balance they receive usually gets thrown away. So that we try to avoid as well. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you so much. Just wondering, like, how do you guys usually interact with them? Like, what kind of support and how far does it go? Thanks.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay, then in that case, we'll close this segment. Again, if you have other further questions, or you want to be one of the booths at the event, please reach out to Daniel, and that really is the purpose of the segment. I just want to remind everyone that actually 2 very successful collaborations came out of this particular segment. So I think this could be the 3rd one as well. So thank you, Daniel, for coming to